Hi everyone, Amber here from So Majestic. Welcome back to my channel. Today is another sewing marathon over on YouTube and I'm so excited to participate. I am sewing up this cute little pouch. I am calling it the pirate pouch. I am so excited about this. I wanted to sew a bag that if you were a beginner bag maker, that you could just follow the instructions through the video and the measurements, like you wouldn't need a pattern. I remember when I was first learning to sew bags and I was so frustrated because I just wasn't understanding what was being told to me in the written instructions. So I have put together this little pouch. The applique, side note, I absolutely love pirates. So I've made the pouch look like a Jolly Roger. The applique is available on my website. I'll have it linked in the description. It is a free file, so you can just add it to your cart and download it for free. I've not turned this into pattern pieces because during this video, I'm literally going to walk you through the steps. So it's just a small pouch. The outside I used vinyl. The inside I used a quilting cotton interfaced with Pellon SF101, and I used a size 5 nylon zipper and a super cute pirate pole that I got from Dream Big Creations. So what you're going to need is 2 pieces of exterior fabric. You can use vinyl, you could use cotton woven, you can use any material as long as your machine will be able to handle it, and 2 pieces of lining fabric. And I do suggest the cotton woven for the lining or a water resistant canvas. But if you're a beginner, use whatever you have at home. You don't need to go buy out anything fancy. Actually, the fabric inside is from Walmart. So if you have Walmart accessible to you, I have no qualms. I use the fabric from there all the time. So we're going to cut our exterior pieces to 8 inches wide by 6 inches tall. And then I'm going to show you how we box the corners and angle the sides to make sure that the little pouch is straight. I'm going to walk you through putting on an applique, putting in a zipper. I hope you enjoy the tutorial. I really wanted a video. I have a lot of tutorials of other people's patterns that are very basic, but I wanted to have one where I just did it myself that I could reference or send people to, because a lot of my patterns that I have available now are a little bit more advanced or for people that are already familiar with bag making. So I really think this is good for beginners. I hope you enjoy it. Let me know in the comments if you do. And thank you again to the Marathon Society. If you guys celebrate Halloween, I hope you have a great Halloween and enjoy. All right, for notions and tools, I am sewing with a Tex 35 thread. This is from Wizardry Stitchery. If you're a beginner bag maker, you can use like a polyester thread that works best in your machine. You want to use polyester for bag making just because it's stronger. And because I'm using vinyl, I'm using a 9014 Microtex. I normally sew with either a 9014 Microtex or Universal. And I also have some double-sided tape, a couple different rulers, blue marking pen that's water soluble, silver marking pen, a chalk marking pen, pair of snips, scissors, seam ripper, stiletto combo. And if there's any other tools as we go along, and you might notice if you've watched my other videos, I'm reversing this compared to my pattern pieces, because in the next step, I'm going to show you actually how to cut down the pattern pieces yourselves. All right, so I have my materials here. I am using this faux leather. It has some texture to it and has like this black felt backing. I'm not going to interface it since it's such a small pouch. I have my 2 lining pieces of quilting cotton. This is just like a world map. This is actually from Walmart, and I have some SF101 from Pellon. So I'm going to interface this to the back of the cotton to give it some structure. And the reason why I didn't already attach it
is because I really want this video to be, especially for beginners, people who might not be so used to all the different terms. And also, like, when you're just starting out, or even like regularly, you don't need fancy like quilt store quilting cottons and such, or custom fabric. So I wanted to make sure I use that. And this SF101 just, it's very lightweight. It's just going to give it a little bit of structure. I also plan on adding the applique. So I have that already cut out. I cut it out with my Cricut. It's out of white glow-in-the-dark vinyl that we carry in the shop. You could cut out different shapes. This is just to, again, teach a new skill that you might not have tried yet. I also have a piece of the vinyl that I'm going to cut out, and I'll have to trim this down after for the zipper tab. I have a piece of zipper tape and my pirate zipper pull, which this I believe came from Dream Big Creations. I bought that at Sewcations this summer. So what I'm going to do is off camera, I'm going to interface this, and then I'm going to come back on just to show you how I am going to prep it to box my corners and make sure that the pouch ends up straight. Alright, so I have just interfaced the back of it, added that Pellon SF101, so that just gives it a little bit more structure. So for my pouch, you could just leave the sides like they are and have a corner. But I want them to have a boxed bottom, and these two pieces are 8 inches wide by 6 inches tall, same size for the lining. So I'm just going to do a very small 1/2-inch box corner. So I'm just using a silver marking pen to trace that, and if you're using the silver marking pen, just check first on vinyl. It usually wipes off with like a baby wipe, but sometimes not always. Like for the glow in the dark, I wouldn't use it on that. And yeah, just certain ones might retain that silver marking. So you always want to test it on a piece of scrap first. And so this is going to give me a nice boxed bottom. So I'm going to cut them out. I should have grabbed my nicer pair of scissors, but I'm gonna do one side on camera and then the rest off. So if I just leave it like this and we box them, the top part of my bag is going to be wider than the bottom when we finish. So in order to make the sides even, I am going to mark a 1/2 inch in on the top, and then I'm just going to taper my line where I'm going to end up cutting this to the corner. So I'll show you what I mean. So I'm just putting that marking there, and I need a bigger ruler. So I'm lining up my 1/2 inch here from the top and the corner of my boxed corner cutout. And I am just drawing that diagonal, and I'm going to trim that down. And I'm doing that for my lining and my exterior. And this is just going to make it so that way when we sew it, I have straight edges instead of the top being wider. So once I have that drawn on, I am going to cut them out. And then also cut along that diagonal line that we drew. So you'll see how the shape has changed from that original rectangle. And I just want to show people this because this is something that you can do at home with rulers, and give you a really good intro to a simple bag making pouch. All right, so I'm going to do the same exact thing for my other exterior and lining piece, cutting out the box corners and tapering the sides. All right, so I have now cut down both my linings and my exteriors. I'm just going to set them mostly to the side for right now because my next step is I want to figure out how long I need my zipper tape. So you can see right now it's the exact length. This is 7 inches. I'm going to use a 3/8 seam allowance. So I know that I need to leave at least that much. And I want to add a zipper tab on the end. So in order to figure this out, the first thing that I'm going to do is add my zipper pull. I do a lot of this by eye. I mean, I guess you could do the math, right? Like you could add on your zipper tab and then place it up here and measure it. I want to say that mine is going to be about 6.5 inches because that's going to give enough space on the sides that we don't want our tab in the zipper caught up in the seam allowance. I'm also going to fold my teeth back on this left-hand side. That way my zipper opening will open wider instead of 2 tabs. If you wanted to, you could put 2 tabs. So first I'm going to do is add my pull. I am right-handed, so I always start on the right-hand side and I just put it on a couple teeth. And then on the next, takes a little bit of practice, but it's balanced, and then I can just pull it on. Okay. So now the next thing that I want to do is add my zipper tab. If you're using vinyl, you can leave a raw edge. If you're using like a quilting cotton, I've cut this to 2 inches. You want to fold it to center and then fold it on itself and encase it. Because I am using the raw edge, I am just going to cut mine to 1 inch. And that way it's only getting folded in half. And I always cut my tabs wider than the zipper. That's so it can just, I give myself more space to catch the fabric to start and stop. Also, you can use a lighter to singe the edge. That way you don't have fraying. So for now, I am going to fold this in half. You could mark a center line, or I just fold it in half because it's so small and place it on. And then I'm going to clip this into place and bring it to the machine. And I'm going to top stitch down the left-hand side and the right-hand side. That's just so it's extra secure and less likely to pull the zipper for it to pull out. All right, so I have just stitched on my zipper tab. You might have noticed that I had a white zipper foot. That is a Teflon foot. It just makes it go over the vinyl a lot smoother, a lot more cleanly. So up here, my top is 7 inches wide. So I'm going to mark the center point at 3.5. And I think earlier I said I probably want my zipper 6.5. I actually want it to end up being 6 inches. But I'm going to fold the teeth to the side. So I'm going to cut it down to 6.5, and I'm measuring that now because now I have my zipper tab, and that little bit can make a really big difference, even in especially if it's a small pouch like what we're doing here. So I'm just marking my 6.5 here, and my 6.5 here. So I can cut it. And actually at the same time, I know that I want it to end up 6 inches. So I'm also going to mark my 6-inch mark as well. Okay, so it may be a tiny bit hard to see with the lighting, but I'm going to cut across at my 6.5. And then I'm going to open up my zipper, and where I have marked that at that 6 inch, I'm going to fold my zipper tape back on itself. And I should say that you could also use a pre-made zipper. So you would just want to make sure that your zipper stop is from the where it opens up from to the stop is about 6 inches. So you definitely can use pre-made. I just prefer the zipper tape in custom bag making because it adds more variety. All right, so we fold it back on itself, and I'm going to kind of pinch that here and then let the teeth come up at a 90-degree angle. And some people take a lighter and singe it and just kind of burn it. I am going to clip it into place. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm folding it on that 6-inch mark and then gently letting the teeth come up. And so on the back side, it forms like a triangle here with your zipper tape. So I'm going to take it to the machine. Make sure I put my needle down, catching that triangle. So if you start too far in, it could unfold. So catching that triangle and just stitching back and forth a couple stitches, base stitches, which is going to hold this at a 90-degree angle. And that makes it so your zipper pull won't get pulled off on this side, but also your pouch will open wider on that end than it would with a second tab. If you don't feel comfortable doing this, you could just cut your zipper to 6 inches and put another tab on this side here. So I'm going to take this to the machine and just add some basting stitches to hold that in place. All right, I realized I forgot to hit the button for the time lapse. So you can see that I have the stitches here. So on the back, now that I don't have the clip on, you can see a little bit more clearly this little triangle here that I was talking about. So what I do is I slide this under my zipper foot, or my presser foot, sorry. And while it's still up, put my needle down into it, make sure I'm catching that triangle, then put my presser foot down and then sew. And I usually have some pretty good luck with that. So now I have my zipper that will fit perfectly and give us enough space on the edges that it's not going to interfere with our seam allowance. And the last thing I want to do with the zipper is I just want to fold it in half. And the zipper pull happened to kind of be like right where the halfway mark was. So yeah, I'm going to fold it in half and just mark. If you're using something that cannot be erased, just make sure that you are putting it on the edges of the tape, so that way it won't show when you go to stitch this. So now I have my zipper prepped, all my pieces prepped. My last thing is the applique. If you don't want an applique, you could just skip this and go to the next part. I have this skull and crossbones to mimic a Jolly Roger pirate flag. I've marked my center up here, so I'm just kind of eyeballing this, and I am going to put a piece of double-sided tape just to hold it in place while I'm sewing. I leave it out of my stitch lines because it can cause your needle to get gummy, and then you can get some skipped stitches. And I'm having some trouble peeling this, but there we go. And I'm just going to estimate where I want it. I want to leave enough space at the top so it's not in my seam allowance. And I want to leave enough space in the bottom that is above these box corners. So again, I'm going to add a little piece here. So now to applique this, I am going to take it to the machine, and I'm going to sew very slowly all the way around. I don't know if I'm going to go around the eye hole and the nose hole. I know I'm definitely not going to do the mouth because it's so small of an area. But I am going to go around the others. And so I will probably end up hand cranking this. The other thing is that I do not want my back stitches to show. So I am going to put my needle in, leave my thread really long, and stitch all the way around and stop at the same hole that I began in. Leave my threads really long, and I'm going to tie it off in the back. So I'm going to bring it to the machine and just quickly stitch around both the skull and the crossbones. Alright, so I just finished the applique. You can see that I have the long threads here. A couple things, it's a little wonky. If I was doing this to sell, I would have went a lot slower and maybe used a different foot. Using the Teflon foot, it's really hard for me to maintain a consistent edge. But I also would have used white thread, but I really wanted you guys to be able to see the thread on the bag. So that's why I didn't change it out. But in order to hide these tails now on the back side, you can take a stiletto or just, you can even use your seam ripper as long as you're very careful and you don't pull out or cut your thread. If you tug up, it kind of creates a little loop here, and you can just catch that loop and it pulls the thread from the front. And do the same thing over here. Sometimes it's very hard to catch that loop because starting and stopping in the same hole, it like knots on itself. So if you're having trouble, you could also take a needle and just thread it from the front, which is what I might end up having to do on this other side. Try one little bit more. I feel like it's there, it's just not coming together. There we go. So then, now all four of my threads, and you cannot see where you start and stop. That's something you can do instead of back stitching. And so I now usually like triple knot these. You can do the surgeon's knot where you wrap it under multiple times. Oh, I just totally missed it. If you have some glue, you could put a little dab of glue after to help keep it from coming undone. And then I cut my threads, but I always leave a little tail. I don't ever want to cut them too short, so that way they don't like come undone and pull back. And so off camera, I'm going to do the same thing, pulling back this and tying off my threads. All right, so now I have tied off my threads. I'm ready to start putting my pouch together. So I'm going to start with my exterior. I have my top center marked. I also have my zipper tape center marked. So I'm going to put my zipper teeth side down on the matching up the center of the zipper to the center of the vinyl. And I'm going to clip it all the way out to the teeth and all the way out to the tab. So I'm also moving my zipper pull out of the way as I'm clipping. If you don't, you can get the little bubble and your zipper tape can kind of become like wobbly. So I'm going to take this to the machine and just baste the zipper in place. Some people go right to putting the lining on. I like to baste just so that way I know that it is really not going to wiggle on me. Okay, so I have my zipper basted on. Also, when you baste and sew it, make sure you're moving your pull out of the way at the same time. Usually I leave my needle down and just pull it so that way you don't get that little bubble in your zipper tape. So now I need one of my linings. You can mark the center and match up centers, or I just line up the top and you're gonna put it right side facing down. So the exteriors, or like the right side of the fabric, are going to be facing each other, and our zipper is going to be pinched between. And again, moving my pull as I am clipping, and this time I'm clipping all the way across. So now this time, when I take this to the machine, I'm going to put on my zipper foot, and I'm going to stitch at 3/8 seam allowance, going all the way across, making sure that I'm moving my pull out of the way as I am sewing. Alright, so I have just stitched this all the way across. When I was stitching this, I used a 2.5 stitch length, my regular stitch length. When I was basting, I used a larger one, a size 4. So now we can cut off our tab here because we don't need that. If you have a lot of overhang of your zipper here, you could also trim that down as well. And now we're going to fold it so that way it is wrong sides together. And now what I'm going to recommend is kind of personal preference. Some people only top stitch, which is like at the largest stitch length, through the exterior. I personally don't like doing that because then your lining can kind of pop up and get caught in your zipper. So I prefer to stitch through both my exterior and the lining. But when doing that, you cannot top stitch to the end. If you top stitched all the way to the end, that's where you get like the funky corners that you can't poke out. So if you're doing this, you have to start at the zipper teeth and end at the zipper tab. And for this, I just backstitch at the beginning and the end. I don't mind that you can see where the backstitch is. If you really wanted to, you could like pull it through and try to hide it. For me, I just use a thread that's going to blend, and the red will do that since this fabric also has red specks. So I'm going to take it to the machine and top stitch through both my exterior and my lining, but making sure I'm only going from my zipper teeth and stopping at the edge of my zipper tab. Alright, I have just top stitched all the way across, starting and stopping at my zipper teeth and zipper tab, and it is not going to interfere with my zipper. You might just want to double check to make sure that you can open and close it. So now I'm going to repeat the same exact steps for the other side. So I'm going to put this side of my zipper teeth or tape right side down, lining up the center, basting it, and then doing the same step, adding the lining, which will then go right sides down and pinch it between. So I'm going to do that off camera because it's the same exact steps for this first side. Okay, so I have just top stitched and added my second side. So you'll see without the zipper tab how this pouch is really going to be able to be open. So now we need to sew it up. So I'm going to keep my zipper open because we want to be able to turn through it. So I am going to put my exterior sides right sides together and match up the bottoms and the sides. And I'm going to I always start with my exterior and I make sure that my seam allowance is kind of pointing to the left and my lining is going to the right, or to the seam allowance is pointing towards the exterior, and it should line up well if you have accurate cuts. The side with the zipper tab is a little bit more bulky, might give you a little bit of trouble. Okay, so you can do that. You could sew the exterior separately. I'm going to do it together with the vinyl, but there is a couple things that we want to be mindful of. So once I get this clipped, I will explain it to you. our seam allowance is 3/8 through this, but because we have cut the lining the same size, we're gonna have to increase it a little bit on the lining side. So the first thing is, for the lining side, I'm going to use my blue water soluble pen because I need to leave a turning hole. So I would leave at least 4 to 5 inches on the bottom here to turn through. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start at the exterior at a 3/8 inch, sew up the 3/8 inch, come along onto my lining. Once I'm on the lining, I'm gonna increase it to a 1/2 inch seam allowance and bring that all the way down. Actually, I didn't think about this with the box corners. Maybe a little bit between a 3/8 and a 1/2 inch. Otherwise, this is gonna get cut off, this corner. So a little bit more than 3/8. And with that 3/8, you're not going to catch your zipper teeth or your tab. So once I come through, I'm going to sew all the way down, back stitch, and then I'm only going to sew this side closed here and here. I want to leave this opening. I'm going to take my back stitch and end it, start my needle again, start at a little bit wider than the 3/8, come up. As I get here, I want to go back to a 3/8 seam allowance and come all the way back down, and then stitching across the bottom of the exterior. So basically the exterior is going to be sewn at a 3/8, the lining slightly bigger than a 3/8 inch, leaving your turning hole in the bottom. All right, so you can see I have my turning hole in the bottom. The sides are stitched up. If you are having trouble with these here, a zipper foot might help if you feel like it's getting too close to your zipper teeth or the tab. So now the last thing we have to do before we turn this is box our corners. So I'm just going to stick my hand in, and it's going to be very narrow of a box corner, like super tiny, and it's just going to give us a slightly wider bottom. So what you do is you are lining up your center seams. I prefer to butterfly my seams open, so both side seam and bottom seam are matched. And so I'm just going to clip it, and then we're going to bring it to the machine and sew at 3/8 inch seam allowance across the bottom here. Same thing for this side. We're going to do the same thing for the lining, and you can do it for the lining so to help it fit a little bit better at a slightly larger than a 3/8. I prefer to have my seams open. If that is not working for you, you can have like one seam going one direction and the other the opposite. I'm going to do the lining at the same time, so you can see this is much narrower because we had a slightly larger seam allowance, so it's going to be a very small box corner, but that's okay. It's still going to give us the shape that I want. And then the same thing, just opening it up and lining them up. And we're sewing out all of this at our regular stitch length, the 2.5. The same thing for when we went around the sides. Okay, so now I'm going to bring it to the machine and sew at the 3/8 seam allowance along the exterior and slightly larger on each of the lining sides. Okay, so I have all 4 of my corners boxed. If you want, you can trim down your seam allowances, especially on the lining side where they might be a little bit thicker. So I'm definitely going to trim them down on that side. And I'm going to trim just the excess of the box corners. I'm trimming them down to like about 1/4 inch. I am not trimming the sides of the exterior here. So now we're ready to turn it right sides out. So I'm just reaching inside, grabbing the bottom and pulling through. If you are using a material like a thicker vinyl and it's not turning easy, you could use like a blow dryer to help make it more malleable. Okay. This one's, especially because I didn't interface the outside, it's turning really nice. And I'm just making sure that I am poking out the corner so you can see down here. That one looks good. This one as well. And then I'm sticking my finger in and then poking out where that tab is and reaching up inside and also doing the same thing. And you can see that I'm going in underneath the lining, and you can see that that poked out really nice. It's not curved in, and that's because we stopped our top stitch at the zipper tab, and we also didn't catch our zipper tab in the seam allowance when we were sewing up the side. And then this side here turns out nice because we didn't have a tab. So same thing for the lining. I'm gonna poke out. I'm just trimming. I had to fix my thread, so there's like a little thing coming through. And the same thing here. And so now we need to close up our turning hole. You could hand sew this. I usually just poke my fingers in and kind of give a little tug, and it just kind of naturally wants to fold down on that seam allowance. And so I always sew mine closed, especially because this is a smaller pouch. I'm not even going to change my thread to have it match the color. I'm just going to use the red. If you wanted to, you could change your thread. And so now I'm just going to bring it to the machine and top stitches closed, back stitching, sealing up the lining. Right, and I apologize again. I forgot to hit the record button. So you can see I've just top stitched it closed, making sure I'm catching the whole opening. So now you can just tuck this down inside, and it should fit inside perfectly, especially because we used a slightly wider seam allowance for the lining. So it should kind of tuck right down in. I think you can kind of see through here. Hopefully the lighting's okay. So that completes our pouch. I'm really happy with how it turned out. You can see that because we angled it, that we have those straight sides, and so I guess if I really shape this, it will stand up by itself, and we got the cute little applique on the front. So I'm really happy with it, how it turned out. I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope it helps the beginner bag makers, especially those who are just learning how to start making pouches and might not have all the tools or materials at home, how you can easily make it without a printed pattern.
Alright, so we have just finished up our pirate pouch. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know in the comments if you found this helpful. I really hope it's reaching beginner bag makers and this helps you start on your journey. So just to show, it has the applique in the front, the back, small box corners, and then inside is just without any pockets. It's perfect. You can add little small things through, and the best part is you can take the same concept and the skills that you learned through this tutorial and make this pattern. You could make the size bigger or smaller. Definitely let me know on social media if you make one and tag me. As a reminder, I'll have all the information in the description, as well as a link to the free applique. I hope you're enjoying all the other videos today. Thank you again for tuning in, and thank you again to the Marathon Society. I'll see you next time. Bye.